Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings, and in today's video we are going to be continuing Naruto Polaris, The Fallen Star. What if Hanabi Hyuga was born first? Part 25 of the Momoshiki arc. As always, if you are new to the channel or if you're a regular and like what we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. Where we last left off with this series, we were now entering into the beginning portions of the tuning exams of the Boruto story. However, in this series, the tuning exams have taken a bit of a turn. Naruto is allowing for ninja tools to be used, even scientific tools. However, they can only be used if they were made by the shinobi actually using them. So you can't have any professional tools made for you for the exam. As such, Boruto has chosen to carve out his own way in terms of his fighting style and in terms of finding his own path within the shinobi world. But how will he fare when he comes face to face with many powerful shinobi from both far and wide and from within his own village? And who do you think is going to advance farthest as the tuning exams get underway? Well, without further ado, let's get into today's video. So as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Guests and officials from both far and wide made their way into the tuning exam arenas, set for what was about to take place, the crowd watching in anticipation for what was to come. Of course, Naruto joined with him the other Kage of the villages, having all 5 Kage in attendance. Sasuke would be watching from a private area in the distance with Karin closely by his side. Sasuke still having a rather rocky reputation, not wanting to stir the boats by being amongst all of the people, and Karin not wanting her husband to be alone as they would cheer on their daughter from the sidelines. Hanabi would be in attendance along with Hinata, Neji, and the younger children in Hideo as well as Himawari. There was also Sakamo who would be joined with them as well, as they all looked to cheer on their elder siblings in the upcoming battles. The final exams would be one-on-one shinobi fights. Of course, 7 teams had advanced to the finals, and as such, the 7 teams that would make up 21 shinobi in total, it had been decided that they would be split into different blocks, 3 blocks of 7 in particular. And the winners from those 3 block mini tournaments would face off in a 3-way final as the culminating finale of the exams. The first block would be the A block. Of course, with each block consisting of 7, one shinobi would get a first round bye. In the A block, Yuto would get the first round bye, and he would face the winner of Inogene versus Hachimaru. Meanwhile, in the below part of the bracket, Saria would face off against Masako, and Siren would face off against Saria from the Hidden Sand Village, with the winners of those 2 battles facing off in the next part of the round. The next block would be the B block, in which Shinki, a shinobi from the Hidden Sand Village, and the adoptive son of Gaara, the Kazekage, would get a first round bye. He would face the winner of Hoki versus Akari. Meanwhile, below them, Mitsuki would face off against Tori from the Hidden Cloud, and Chocho would face off against Kinta, a representative from the Hidden Leaf and member of Team Yuto, alongside with Akari. And then finally, to make up the C block, Momo Hyuga, who would get a first round bye, would face the winner of Masune versus Tori of the Hidden Cloud. And in the lower half of the bracket, Shikadai would face off against Yuto of the Hidden Sand Village, and Boruto would face off against Yuri of the Hidden Cloud. With the stage now set, With the bracket now being finalized, Rock Lee, who would be the presiding proctor over the exams, would welcome everyone, as everyone waited in anticipation for the battles that were to start. For those who weren't participating, they would have special seating areas in locker rooms where they could watch battles from a monitor, waiting for the time for their matches to begin. The matches would go through the first rounds for the A block, the B block, and the C block respectively, and would move on in that order. And with such, our tuning exams will now begin. The first match would see Inogene versus Hachimaru. While I won't be able to go into full detail for every battle in the first few rounds, as I do need to conserve time, I can give you a brief overview of how the fights work and allow you to get a better glimpse into what these genin are capable of. In terms of this battle, Inogene's fighting style is the same as in the original timeline, but what is Hachimaru truly capable of? Well, as you know, Hachimaru was originally born with birth defects, causing him to lose his left arm and left leg. However, being inspired by the tale of Naruto, the gutsy ninja that never gave up and made his dreams come true, it inspired Hachimaru to do the same. It also caused him to explore the side of technology and trying to combine that with the art of ninjutsu. As such, he has developed a special katana blade, a blade that he developed based off of an ancient weapon that was used by the Gold and Silver brothers and used by the Sage of Six Paths. That is known as the Bosho Tinning Fan, a special tool that was capable of using all 5 changes in chakra nature and was a perfect counter against any of the other chakra natures. The way that it works is that Hachimaru has within his sword special sealing formulas that run all through along the blade. All he has to do is activate the sealing formula and it unleashes an elemental attack. So if he's going up against fire, he can counter with water. If he goes up against lightning, he can counter with wind, so on and etc. Also, his mechanical arm and leg that he had specially made for himself is used with many other tools and gadgets that can allow him to fight and move on the fly at a minute's notice. The battle between Inogene and Hachimaru would definitely be a closely contended one, with Inogene going a bit too soft on his friend at the start of the fight. However, he would quickly have to change his mind on that when Hachimaru would begin to get the better of him. Ultimately, Hachimaru would win with his blade pressed against Inogene's throat, allowing for him to get the victory before Inogene has a chance to get off the mind transfer jutsu, allowing him to advance to the next round. The next match would be Saria Uchiha versus Masako Lee. This would be a taijutsu clinic with Saria on the back foot in the beginning of the fight. With Masako taking traits from her father, Rock Lee, in taijutsu, and of her mother, a famed samurai from the land of snow, Masako would definitely have the tools to keep Saria on edge. While Masako prefers to fight more like her father than like her mother, preferring hand-to-hand over using weapons, it doesn't mean she's not capable of using one. As such, she is skilled in kenjutsu. With Saria being on the back foot in the fight, using her kunai and her sharingan as a way to try to keep up with Masako's insane speed and her skill with the blade. The two would move as a blur of red and green all throughout the field, with the sound of blades clashing over one another continuously moving. However, Saria would have an advantage, that being her mother. In this universe, she is the daughter of Karin Uzumaki, and with that Uzumaki lineage running through her veins, it gives her a big boost in stamina, allowing her to fight and outlast Masako to a degree. However, it's when Masako begins to use the 8 inner gates where this could be an issue. However, Masako would only be able to use up to the 2nd gate, with Saria having to work really hard to overcome the gate's effects. Ultimately, though, it would end with Saria capturing Masako within 2 of the Uzumaki sealing chains that Saria would be able to manifest, restraining her and holding her in place, and ultimately giving Saria the win to advance to the next stage. The next match would see Siren Haruno versus Saria of the Hidden Sand. Siren would definitely have this match in her favor, being the daughter of Sakura Haruno and Dosu Haruno. In this universe, Sakura specialized in genjutsu and wasn't trained under Lady Tsunade, but Sakura's genjutsu skills allowed her to flourish, becoming a practitioner and a master of genjutsu ability. Also, being trained by her father Dosu, she inherited the Kekkei Genkai for sound release. When you combine the two, Siren specializes in auditory genjutsu. And don't forget, Dosu was also trained by the likes of Kakashi, which means she also inherited the skills for using a sword to a decent degree. The fight would definitely be in Siren's favor, and she would get the win, advancing to the next round. For B block, we would have Hoki versus Akari. Akari is not from the Hidden Leaf. Instead, she comes from the Land of Fire and was selected to be a part of Team Yuto by the Feudal Lord, in an attempt to display what true power could lie beyond the strengths of the Hidden Leaf village. As such, Hoki would not be aware of Akari or her skills. Akari, however, would be equipped with ninja tools, especially ones that could aid her in genjutsu, by Kotatsuke. This, at first, seemed to give her the edge, as she believed she had managed to trap Hoki within an elaborately made genjutsu that he could not escape. However, if she thought that doing this would give her the win, she would be wrong, because you see, Hoki's Jonin sensei, Mujino, came from the Anbu Black Ops, and the Anbu Black Ops have special ways of dealing with genjutsu, and being able to counter it. Hoki would be able to break free from the genjutsu and would be able to get the win. Now, you might be thinking the Feudal Lord wouldn't be too pleased after being guaranteed victory and seeing someone from a team he selected losing in the first round. But Kotatsuke would tell the Feudal Lord to relax, and that everything was going according to plan. Even in the worst cases of scenario, things can always work in your favor. The next fight would see Mitsuki versus Tori from the Hidden Cloud. There's not too much detail that needs to go into this match. While Tori specializes in lightning release and using it to amplify his speed and strength, he simply doesn't have the ability to keep up with Mitsuki. Remember, Tori lost to Saria in the original timeline, and facing off against Mitsuki, who is just as not, if not more powerful, means that Mitsuki is able to get the win without too much worry, and as such, he advances to the next round. Following this, the next battle would be Chocho Akamichi versus Kinta, a fellow member of Team Yuto. While on the outside, Kinta does not look as a very intimidating fighter. Do not let looks deceive you. His ninja tool is one that was made especially for him, given his unassuming look, that being a special inhibitor chip that was placed in the back of his neck. This chip, however, is a very powerful tool and a very dangerous one. Why is that? Well, this tool allows someone to open up the 8 inner gates without really having to train or work for it. That's right, instead of learning how to open the inner gates by natural talent, Kinta has a special tool that allows him to open up his inner gates at will. While it isn't to the same degree as how someone could do it naturally, it does reduce a lot of the drawbacks. Also, his glasses that were made especially for him have another special feature added to them, that being that the glasses can work kind of like the Sharingan. If you're familiar with the movie DOA, Dead or Alive, there was a special tool used in that film, a pair of glasses that were made to be used to predict an opponent's next movements and how they fought, as well as adapting and downloading fighting styles that they come across facing just once, making them super adaptable. Using all of these skills to his advantage, Kinta would get the win over Chocho, avoiding most of her expansion jutsu and being able to survive a flurry from her using the butterfly mode, with him getting the win and advancing to the next round. The next match would see Masune versus Tori. While not much is known about Tori, there's no indication that Tori has any unique skill or ability that would make her too much of a threat for Masune. Masune also being the son of Rock Lee and his sister in Masako, while he does love his father, doesn't necessarily inherit his father's innate desire for taijutsu, and instead leans more so to using weapons and more specifically inheriting his mother's style of wielding a sword and specializing in kenjutsu. However, he is still very adept at using taijutsu and should not be underestimated. The fight would be pretty swift for him and he would gain the victory, moving to the next round. The second to last match would be a rematch from the original timeline, that being Yado versus Shikadai. Shikadai was able to beat her in the original timeline with little to no difficulty, so there's no reason why he wouldn't be able to do so here. Shikadai would get the win and advance. And in the final match of the first round, we would see Boruto versus Yuri. Now, in the original timeline, you know that with Boruto, he ended up using a scientific ninja tool, cheating to win in this fight. However, this Boruto is much different and isn't relying on a tool to win. However, this fight still would not be easy. Yuri would attempt to keep his distance from Boruto, using his special bubblegum jutsu, creating multiple explosive bubbles all throughout the arena, making it difficult for Boruto to get to him. However, Boruto would be smart and would be able to think on his feet, hoping to find a way to close the gap between them and to land his jackpot gentle fist strike, which could get him the victory. As such, Boruto would maneuver around the bubbles, avoiding any popping that could cause an explosion and do him damage. However, Yuri would still make it a lot difficult for Boruto. Even while outmaneuvering the larger ones, smaller ones would be made, causing bits and smaller explosions to occur, forcing Boruto back and forcing him on the defensive. The crowd would watch on in anticipation, waiting for Boruto to make his next move and to see what he was going to do next. After weaving a series of hand signs, Boruto had the idea. It would be a little taxing, but the jutsu should be all in all effective. Boruto would climb up the side walls of the arena before weaving a series of hand signs and using the water-style water surge jutsu, shooting out water over the entire arena, causing it to act like a wave of rain. Yuri would be surprised by this, as the water pellets would splash onto the bubbles, causing them all to explode all at once, with Yuri being in the center of the explosions. Where he thought he was the safest from Boruto, now he was trapped like a rat. Once all the explosions had gone off, Yuri would stagger to his feet, having survived his own jutsu. However, before he had a chance to think of his next move, Boruto would close the distance between them, using the Boruto-style Gale Palm Stream, shooting himself as fast as he could towards Yuri with the help of two shadow clones. Once he closed the gap, Boruto would channel his chakra into his fist before launching back with the final strike, the jackpot gentle fist strike, smashing Yuri right in the face as he was attempting to create one more bubble. The explosion would blow in Yuri's face, knocking him clean out and knocking Boruto back a bit also. While Boruto would be a bit tired, he would stagger to his feet victorious, his arm a bit bruised, but nothing he couldn't handle, as he got the win and advanced to the next round. The next round would begin with Yuto versus Hachimaru. To say that this was a clash of styles would be an understatement. This was the definition of David versus Goliath in a sense, in terms of the rich versus the common class going head to head. Hachimaru would attempt to go on the offensive, but Yuto was able to hold his own effectively. Yuto even being able to match with Hachimaru's strength, almost staggeringly. Boruto would be surprised, as he never expected Yuto to be this strong. In fact, he never thought that he was skilled at all to be a shinobi, but here he was holding his own rather well. Even when Hachimaru attempted to use some of his ninja tools, Yuto would counter with some of his own. Boruto was surprised to see that he even had ninja tools, and Naruto paid attention closely to him. They had all of the shinobi checked before they entered into the arena to make sure everything was on the up and up, and nothing suspicious had been found. Yet even still, from all of the reports that they had gathered, Yuto had never shown much interest, if any, at being a shinobi, even though he had private training in ninja arts. And yet even still, he was fighting on par with a rather impressive genin. Yuto would mock Hachimaru for trying to be a ninja, stating that in the end, he was half of what a shinobi should be, and that nothing he did would ever change that. Hachimaru, however, would continue to fight through Yuto's words. This was his dream, his chance to fight on the big stage, and he wasn't going to allow anyone to dissuade him. Ultimately, though, the fight would come down to a final clash, a clash that unfortunately would result in Hachimaru losing his prosthetic arm and leg, being left on the ground with no way to move and no way to defend himself. Yuto pressed his kunai against his throat, forcing him to surrender. Even still though, the people would applaud Hachimaru for his bravery and for his ability to compete. Even if he had lost the day, he had gained victory in the approval of the people around him, and as such, he could at least leave with his hand held high. As he walked through the tunnels though, he would get an unexpected surprise. Naruto would be waiting for him. Lord Seventh, I've heard a lot about you, Hachimaru. You have? Mm-hmm. It was really cool the way you were able to fight with those tools of yours. You made them all yourself? Well, yeah, just working with some scraps that I had around. They're nothing all that special. They ended up failing in the end. But still, you put in all that work and all that effort. I know it wasn't for nothing. You have a bright future as a shinobi. Really? Of course. I know talent when I see it, and you've definitely got what it takes. I'll be depending on you. The village will. You'll make us all very proud. Hachimaru would be helped to the back, where he would have a new prosthetic and arm worked on to help him get back on his feet, feeling a lot more confident even after the loss. The next match would be Siren versus Saria, the clash of genjutsu users. Siren would attempt to use genjutsu to stun Saria, and Saria would have to use her Sharingan to constantly break free and keep track of her chakra to make sure she wasn't being affected. But even when not using genjutsu, Siren was still skilled enough with the blade, and Saria would have to keep herself on guard against her at all times. The two girls would be pretty evenly matched, and among the next generation kunoichi, they were looked at as to be the most promising. Saria would have to use the technique learned by her mother, the Kagura of the mind's eye, in order to keep track of all of her surroundings. Of course, Siren never expected to win just by outright using her genjutsu alone, but she was learning one of her father's signature jutsus, that being the concussion orb. If you're wondering what the concussion orb is, it's basically a Rasengan but mixed in with sound release chakra. So imagine holding sound in your hand, a concussive sound force, and then slamming that concussive sound ball into something. You see, what makes this Rasengan, or a variant of Rasengan if you will, a lot more dangerous than any other Rasengan ever made, it's because sound is something you can't block. It's not something you can overcome. It's not something that the body can resist. Sound waves can affect anything and everything, unless it was thrown into a vacuum in space where there is no sound. So for Saria to be hit by something like that, it could definitely be the end for her. However, Saria would have to stand on guard, as Siren looked for the opportunity to strike with the concussive orb, hoping to knock Saria out once and for all. Saria would lunge forward at the last second as the orb came inches away from slamming into her chest. Saria would move slightly enough so that only her shoulder would take the brunt of the attack, with her using the momentum of grabbing Siren and reverse slamming her into the ground, before unleashing a single chakra chain, wrapping it around Siren to hold and keep her in place, subduing and suppressing her chakra long enough for her to hold out and get the win. Saria would have only one good arm, as the other would be pretty damaged, as she had ended up getting her shoulder popped out of her socket and she'd have to forcibly pop it back in. It would be a tough fought victory, but Saria would get the win and advance to the next round. The next match would see Shinki versus Hoki. This would definitely be a unique clash in style, with Hoki using his specialty in Earth Release, attempting to create a large maze and hoping to confuse Shinki while he attempted to get him for a close enough strike. While Hoki is definitely a skilled young genin and someone with a lot of promise in the future, as he models himself after the 6th Hokage, Kakashi Hatake, who is his idol in a lot of ways, he's ultimately outclassed in this match, not having any real technique, at least for now, that will allow him to compete with Shinki on this level, especially given Shinki's ability to use the Iron Sand. As a result of this, Shinki would be able to get the win ultimately and would advance to the next stage. The next match would be Mitsuki versus Kinta. Kinta would have to push his body to the limit facing off against Mitsuki, who simply just seemed to have a power that he couldn't eclipse no matter how hard he tried. Mitsuki, for the most part, was able to tell that there was something a bit wrong with Kinta, at least to a degree, in the sense that his power didn't seem natural, at least not to the chakra that he was putting out. He was manipulating his inner gates, but it didn't seem like it was anything natural to him. In fact, it seemed unnatural and rather uncomfortable. Mitsuki multiple times would tell him to simply give up, because he could already see how the fight was going, and if it continued the way that it did, it wasn't going to go well for him. However, Kinta was not one to give up easily. He pushed his body to the absolute limit, and Mitsuki would have no choice but to respond. It would be for a brief second, but a faint teal glow would appear around Mitsuki. Mitsuki would use the power of Sage Mode, and that alone was enough to outlast against Kinta. Of course, Mitsuki couldn't use the power for too long, and in fact, he couldn't even enter into his full Sage Mode state. What he used was simply just a little bit of the Sage Chakra, just enough for him to outclass Kinta and to force Kinta to tire himself out. Kinta would be left standing on both feet, but not being able to lift his arms at all. Despite how far he had gotten, he simply couldn't overpower Mitsuki the way that he was. Ultimately, Kinta would have no choice but to bow out of the fight, and Mitsuki would get the win and advance to the next stage. The feudal lord would look to Katatsuge in the specter's seats angrily. He was promised an overwhelming and dominant victory, and yet all he had seen was failure from the other two. The only one holding up their end of the deal was his son, Yuto, and he was able to advance. However, Katatsuge would tell the feudal lord to calm down, reminding him that there was always a bigger picture to things. He simply had to be patient and see. Everything happening up until now was happening for a reason, And actually, this was a pretty good deal for Kinta to lose the way that he did, because even in the loss, they had gained so much more. However, the Fuel Lord was not one for sweet talk. He warned that his son better win this whole tournament, otherwise all that funding that he was expecting, all of that was going to go away, and he'd be left with nothing at all. Katasuke was sitting in his seat, now starting to sweat just a little bit. He was going to have to make sure Yuto would pull out all the stops in the next round, especially since that would lead directly into the finals. It was up to him to make sure that the young lord could advance and get the victory. The next match would be Momo versus Masune, a battle between teammates. Now, under normal circumstances, this fight would already have more than enough hype to it. But when you have the daughter of Neji Hyuga and the son of Rock Lee going head to head, sparks are definitely going to fly. Everyone in the crowd who had a close attachment to these two would be cheering to their heart's content, seeing the clash in styles between the gentle fist and the strong fist. Of course, using taijutsu wasn't the primary specialty of Masune, but it wasn't like he couldn't use it at all. The fist would definitely be flying between these two candidates, and ultimately, while Masune was able to hold his own, and on any given day might have been able to get the victory, in fact, had this been Masoka, she probably could have gotten the win over Momo. But in the end, Momo would be able to hold off against the power of the strong style. Using her gentle fist to perfect perfection, she would use 128 palms on Masune, striking him down and ultimately getting the win, advancing to the semi-finals. The final match of the second round would be Shikadai versus Boruto. If you're wondering, this match would go just about the same as it does in the original timeline. However, when we get to the point where Boruto is captured in the Shadow Possession Jutsu, now we're left with a different outcome. Because now, Boruto would not have the scientific ninja tool to aid him in this fight, and Shikadai was pretty close to getting the win. But how would Boruto manage to overcome in this exact moment? Well, if you'll remember, when the match started, Boruto created a series of shadow clones, all trying to evade the Shadow Possession Jutsu and get in a single strike on Shikadai. Boruto was known for creating up to 4 clones, and because of this, when he created 4 extra clones, Shikadai was able to keep track of them all and was able to capture them. However, there was one thing that Shikadai never counted on. Boruto had been training like a madman for almost a month and a half in preparation for the exams, Sasuke not making it easy on him at all. Because of that, he got a little stronger, a little more in the tank if you will, enough to make one more shadow clone. But where was the shadow clone? Where exactly had Boruto hid it? Did he make it before the fight started? No, not at all. Shikadai would hold Boruto's hand into the air. However, Boruto would have to come clean first. Shikadai, wait! I need you to help me. What are you talking about? There's a paper bomb under my jacket. I kind of made it for a situation like this, and I need you to get it off of me. What? Why would you do something? Look, I didn't know it would come to this, but please, I need you to take it out. I'm not playing a trick on you. Shikadai would use the Shadow Possession Jutsu while connected to Boruto to open the jacket, and revealing that there was a paper bomb that was about to go off. Shikadai would use Shadow Possession to maneuver the jacket off of Boruto and fling it into the air. Shikadai weaving a sigh of relief as the explosion was expected to go off. However, what happened instead would be the most unsurprising thing you could imagine. It was so unorthodox and so unexpected, and yet at the same time, it's something you would expect the son of Naruto to do. The jacket poofed into the air before turning into Boruto. Shikadai looked across to see the Boruto he had captured, smiled as he poofed and disappeared. And Shikadai would catch the jackpot gentle fist full strike right to the face, knocking him clean out onto the ground and giving Boruto the win. You see, Boruto fully expected to get captured by Shikadai at some point. He knew this going into it. That's why, using the training he had created one extra clone, and he used the transformation jutsu to turn himself into a jacket. That way, when he got caught by Shikadai, he would just have to trick Shikadai into getting him to get rid of the jacket, and once it was tossed into the air to avoid the explosion, Boruto would transform and would be able to strike at Shikadai, who wouldn't be able to use his shadow to stop him because Boruto would be in the air, giving him the win and allowing him to advance to the semi-finals. By the time the fighting had come to a stop, it had already been close to midday. A brief 1-hour reprieve was going to be had before the start of the semi-finals and then the final round. Boruto, Saria, and Mitsuki would meet up with one another, happy to see just how far they had gotten, and they all had the potential to face one another in the final round. However, their opponents coming up were not going to be easy to beat, not in the slightest. For you see, the semi-finals had now been set. In the first semi-final match, Saria would have to get through Yuto. Mitsuki would go one-on-one against the Sans Shinki. And finally, Boruto would have to go one-on-one against the one person he's never been able to beat in his life, his own family, his cousin, Momo Hyuga. The stage was now set for the semi-finals and the soon-to-come finals of the Chunin exams. Who was going to be the winner, the last shinobi left standing? In just a short time, that question would be answered. This concludes Naruto Polaris, The Fallen Star. What if Hanabi Hyuga was born first, part 25. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Also, stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we're continuing a series that we haven't done in almost a year, and that is What If Deku Was a Power Ranger? Heroes of the Morphin Grid, Part 13, the beginning of the Psycho Wars arc. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time.